With the recent release of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, everyone's eyes have been on Nintendo for what their next move could be in the console gaming market. And with the recent return of Nintendo Directs, we may have just found some evidence pointing towards a new Nintendo Switch revision this year. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I've got someone with me here.
Hey, I'm Brandon.
And yeah, this is our first little Club Tendo thing. I'm very excited to be here, and I think I speak for both of us when I say that. We've got some big stuff to discuss, guys.
Oh yeah, this is some big news.
This is a really big deal. So it's not been a secret. We've kind of all known about this Switch Pro or the Switch Plus or whatever. It's gone by many names, right? But we've all it's been a rumor for a while. I mean a while. There's rumors, there's leaks, there's everything under the sun regarding this new Switch revision. And I mean, there's a lot of other evidence, which plenty of other people have talked about. That's not what we're here to talk about today, because we found something big, as I just said, in the latest Nintendo Direct. So why don't you tell us a bit about what happened with the Nintendo Direct and kind of the big return there, Brandon?
So, a few weeks ago, Nintendo had their latest Direct, where they revealed some of the biggest titles in a while that are going to be releasing quite a ways from now. It's actually in 2022, which a lot of people have been thinking that that's a long time to wait. And they've had some interesting announcements regarding that time frame, with earlier today a new Pokemon game that has been announced. I can't remember the name at the moment.
Pokemon Legends Arceus, I believe.
Yes, Pokemon Legends Arceus being released in 2022 as well. Other big titles like Splatoon 3 and
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild too. That's a really big one.
Too.
Especially considering that the Switch originally launched with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game that a lot of people are still coming back to even today, which is crazy to me to think about.
Yeah, like the game that started at the Switch's birth, that was even released on the Wii U. To think people are still playing that as much as they are, it shows how much time Nintendo has put into those big main party titles. And it's good to know that people still care about the game. I personally have not picked up the game myself, but I have a
mistake you need to fix.
It is a mistake I need to fix, I assure you. But I've seen gameplay of it, and it's definitely a game that I think Nintendo did a great job with.
Oh, it's a great game. Personally, not my favorite Zelda, but it's just a phenomenal game. It's really a must-play if you own a Switch, if you ask me. But going out of that, so the Nintendo Direct was a really big deal, and there were a lot of announcements, a lot that are coming very soon, and even some, as Brandon pointed out here, later this year. And we're going to be focusing on one of those today, being Splatoon 3, which shocked a lot of people, I think. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would agree. I think with Splatoon 2 still having such a devoted fan base where you can find new games very easily, I think it was very surprising to everyone to see this shocking release in the first Direct in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, again, like Brandon said, Splatoon 2 is still going really strong. We're not getting any new Splatfests or anything, but you can still hop in, you can still find a lobby, and it's still a really fun game to play. Splatoon is just a really unique Nintendo franchise, and it's just a really big deal that we're getting the third game so soon, especially since the last release was on the Wii U. And Splatoon 2 is kind of just everyone, I think, really assumed that Splatoon 2 would be the only Splatoon game on Switch, and that makes perfect sense, right? I mean,
it really does. And I think there's a lot of mystery hidden behind these big party titles that are planned to come out in 2022. It really leaves you thinking, why are all these big party titles getting planned for next year? And I think we have an idea as to why that might be happening, Nathan, if you'd like to explain.
Yeah, so I play a lot of Switch games, okay? And I have personally, with the 3DS, experienced having to transfer save data, right? And the Switch also supports that. It's a very big deal, right? You don't want to lose your save data for your games, especially games like Breath of the Wild, which we just talked about. There's a lot with those games. And people have poured hundreds of hours into this game, and it would really suck to lose all that progress. Now, a lot of games on Nintendo Switch do support a feature called cloud saves, and you all probably know what that is. In case you don't, it basically means your save data gets uploaded to a server run by Nintendo, and it can be downloaded again on any Nintendo Switch system. Again, most games support this, but one particular game, which a lot of people have always felt was really odd, was Splatoon 2. Splatoon 2 does not support cloud saves, and considering how much exclusive gear you can get in that game, and how much there is, and how much time you can put into this, well, it's baffled everyone for a long time why this game does not support cloud saves, when so many other first-party Nintendo titles and even third-party games do support it. And now we've got Splatoon 3. And in case you can't see where we're going with this, let me elaborate. So, let's say, hypothetically, we get a new Nintendo Switch revision later this year, right? So, it's a new system. You're buying a new system, and you're going to have to transfer all your save data onto that system, right? It makes perfect sense. And most Nintendo games, you will be able to transfer your save data onto that system. But not for Splatoon 2. And that's gonna suck for a lot of people. It's a reason why Nintendo released a little updated Switch, a very small update, increased battery life a little bit, that sort of thing. And they released that a little while back. One of the reasons I was hadn't even really considered getting that was because of games like Splatoon 2, where you wouldn't be able to transfer your save data. And that would be horrible to lose all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine getting your brand new Switch Pro and trying to load up Splatoon 2 and all of your guns and cosmetics you worked so hard to get were just completely gone. So many people would complain. It would be such a bad move on Nintendo's part, and it's just very convenient that a new Splatoon game happens to be coming out next year in 2022. I think it's just very conveniently placed.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And that's kind of the point we wanted to share with you guys is, again, Splatoon 2 is a game that is going very strong still to this day, even though it released, back in 2017 now?
That's crazy.
Is that when the Switch came out? It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
I know, right? It's been so long.
Yeah, right? So, just the fact that we're getting a new Nintendo Switch, possibly, later this year, it just makes perfect sense. Because why would you put two Splatoon games on the same platform? We had one on the Wii U, we had Splatoon 2 on Switch, and it's still going strong. There's not a reason to put out a third one right now. Not at all. Unless you're planning a Nintendo Switch revision, which would make perfect sense, because if you are planning on getting a new Nintendo Switch, you're not going to be able to transfer your Splatoon 2 save data, and a lot of people would not be happy about that unless a new game came out in the series that made playing the second one and transferring your save data onto a new Switch kind of pointless. And I think that's just, it's so mind-boggling to me. This is one of many pieces that points towards a Switch Pro or a Switch revision coming out this year. But this piece, no one's talked about it, and I guess it is really recent still, but it makes too much sense, right?
I mean, we're also starting to see quite the interesting trend of very hyped up big main party games planned to be released in 2022, like the new Pokemon game. If you haven't watched the latest direct that was streamed earlier this morning.
Yeah, so the Pokemon official YouTube channel actually streamed a Pokemon Presents, which is essentially a Pokemon Nintendo Direct. And there was a few pretty big announcements there, which we're not going to dwell too much on in this video, obviously, but you got Pokemon Snap News, which is a game I'm personally going to be picking up, but it looks really cool. We got remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which people have been looking forward to for ages, and the big one, which Brandon here keeps referencing, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Yes, it's pronounced Arceus, which is just this big game. And we were saying earlier as well, it doesn't really look finished. It looks like a phenomenal game, sure. The gameplay looks astounding. I think we can all agree on that. But if you pay attention, if you didn't know this before, I would encourage you to go back and rewatch the trailer for it. But the open world looks really kind of empty, and in addition to that, the game's resolution is surprisingly not very high, and the animations are kind of choppy, which again, it's coming out next year. We've got plenty of time, and this is Pokemon we're talking about. There's no way I would not be concerned. There's no way it's going to stay like this. It's obviously going to be fixed, but still, the fact remains that this is clearly, because we've seen games like Pokemon Sword and Shield, right, that look fine, perfectly fine on the Switch. And so they could have just easily gone for something like that again. But the fact that, it's very clear they're trying to push with this game. They're trying to push the Nintendo Switch. And so games like that, games like Breath of the Wild 2, there's more games coming out. People are talking about Monster Hunter Rise, I believe. I'm not a big Monster Hunter fan myself, but just there's so many big third-party and first-party titles, as Brandon said, that just they're really starting to push the Switch and what it can do. And that, combined with the Splatoon thing and little things like this, really point to a Switch revision and just getting something new next year. That, and obviously, as we mentioned earlier, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, right? We talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, those consoles, of course, they're very hard to get your hands on them right now.
Say that again.
A lot of people have been buying those up in hopes to make some cheap cash, which I have my own opinions about that. I'm sure you do.
I think we all have. I think all of us in the gaming community have our own opinions about that.
Yeah, let's just say that me and my brother personally do not own any of those consoles. And even though they're hard to get, the consoles outplay the Switch. Even with the Switch's portability in so many fronts, it's the next generation of gaming consoles. It's the new standard, if you will.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we've got the Switch, which is still holding up surprisingly well, and that's mainly due to the amount of great first-party titles that Nintendo keeps putting out. But one of the reasons the Switch was such a big selling point for a lot of people was because compared to the Wii U, I mean, just in general, the Wii U did not have hardly any third-party support, and that was something that kind of started back with the Wii, I think. Companies were super big to jump onto that with the Wii. They thought it was going to be a big moneymaker for them, right? But the thing was, the Wii was just not powerful compared to current generation consoles, and that's what we're seeing here. And the Wii U kind of fixed that, but by then the damage had kind of already been done, and companies just were not putting games on this system. And that all changed with the Switch, which has a ton of third-party support now, and it's crazy how much support it has.
It's unbelievable, as you mentioned, the support, Nathan, to see even how many third-party games are on sale at one given time. I was scrolling through a list of big titles too, like Little Nightmares and Doom games. I bought a few of those last night, actually.
Always something on sale.
There's always big third-party games on sale. It just goes to show how broad of a scope Nintendo has covered with their Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, and so just it makes perfect sense, because despite all these big titles, it's a great selling point for the Switch, of course, but we're kind of having a repeat of what happened with the Wii. And I mean, not obviously. I don't want to scare you guys, but the fact of the matter is that eventually Nintendo is gonna have to upgrade, because with these new generation consoles, companies are going to be trying to push the boundaries more and more with what they do with their games. We see games like Resident Evil Village by Capcom, and that's promising like no loading times at all. Just a completely, what's the word I'm looking for? it just
Seamless
promises
transitions.
a completely seamless experience,
Seamless.
right? On the current generation consoles, and that's just not something I think the Switch could do.
Yeah, sadly, I think on those fronts, the Switch, you'll see as people start to get their hands on these consoles and developers start to develop games in the coming year, the Switch will get left behind. And as much as I love my Nintendo Switch that I spent over $600 on,
that's a story for another day.
That's a story for another day, but it's gonna get left behind in the dust if Nintendo doesn't up their game in some form or fashion in the coming months.
And it's not like Nintendo's stupid. They know this is an issue. And I think it's pretty obvious that with what we've talked about, especially with Splatoon 3, I think it's pretty obvious that they're setting the stage for a new Nintendo Switch, a revision.
Yeah, and I think over the next few months, we'll start to see a trend of some big titles being planned to release in 2022. So you'll have this library of first-party games spanning the different genres of like Mario and Pokemon,
Zelda, Kirby,
Kirby, Splatoon. You'll have all those being planned to release in 2022. And of course, this does leave the question with all these being planned to release in 2022, the console would have to come out before these games. So when do you think, Nathan, that Nintendo would be planning to release this based on our information? And of course, with Breath of the Wild 2, which if you guys can remember, at the Switch's release, it was the launch title. It wouldn't be that much of a stretch to guess that Breath of the Wild 2 would be released with the new Switch, just like Breath of the Wild was released with the original Switch.
Yeah, so there's still, I'm sure a lot of you who watch the Direct know, Nintendo's still putting out a lot of games on this system. And it doesn't really seem like right now is the best time to release a new revision, but you gotta keep in mind, a lot of stuff that's coming out and stuff that, isn't really pushing the Switch that much is in the first quarter of this year. We still have a long way to go toward the end of the year. And we're seeing big titles, like really big deal titles, like Splatoon 3. And Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 still has no information on it, which is really suspicious.
Even though it was announced, not even last E3. I'm pretty sure it was the E3 before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
so long
didn't
ago.
have an E3 last year, but yeah, it was ages ago, right? So they clearly have been making ground on it. So why aren't they showing it to us? And that begs the question. There's still so much we don't know about the latter half of this year, and I think, in case what we've said hasn't made it obvious, with what we know about Splatoon 3, again, I think for holiday of this year, the Nintendo Switch revision is the perfect way to go. It's also something that's going to sell, because if you get Breath of the Wild 2 with that, you release them simultaneously for holiday this year, people are going to want that. It's new generation consoles, as we said. People will buy this, and it's just perfect. And
I don't think they will completely ditch the original Switch, at least at first. It's not going to be like the Switch was to the Wii U.
Yeah, I keep stressing that this is a revision and not a new console, because I don't think it's a new console. Nintendo themselves has said that they really want to keep the Switch around for a while, and it makes sense. It's making money, right? But yeah, I feel like this is going to be more of a new Nintendo 3DS situation for those of you who have not forgotten about the 3DS. Yeah, I feel like it's very much going to be one of those. I don't know if it's going to have any exclusive games or not. I'd like to think Nintendo's probably learned their lesson from that. But yeah, I really think that this is going to be something that you can be excited for. Whether you're just sticking with your regular Switch, you're going to have some cool games to play that are really going to push the boundaries. And if you're interested in buying a new Nintendo Switch that's going to, with like 4K resolution or what have you, all this stuff that's been rumored, that's really going to bring the Nintendo Switch back up to snuff with the current generation of consoles, I mean, you're gonna have some beautiful. A game like Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is still regarded today as one of the most beautiful games on the Switch, and I do agree. It is a very good looking game, and it would really show off what the Switch Pro or Switch 2 or whatever you want to call it. It would really show just how much this new revision could do. Now, unfortunately, I think we're about out of time here, but I think we've got our points across pretty well, don't you?
Yeah, I agree. And with Breath of the Wild 2 being announced so long ago, I don't even know how long it's been. And with, of course, us needing an announcement for this holiday, we all know Nintendo loves to push the holiday sale.
Big holiday announcements.
Big
Every
holiday
company does
announcement. Yep. I think that with everything we've seen with Splatoon 3, the new Pokemon game that was announced today, we're going to see a trend of this library being built up for the new Switch Pro, and I think that it's definitely in the cards for this to be announced to come out this holiday.
Yeah, I mean, everything appears to be lining up, right? So if there's any takeaway from this video, you might not want to spend all your money in one place this March.
Yeah, even with all these amazing games coming out, I think the Switch Pro is looming around the next corner, and we have to be ready for if we want to get that on launch day.
I mean, just imagine how good DC Superhero Girls is going to look on the new
Exactly,
console.
DC Superhero Girls.
We all know how great that game is going to be.
Yeah,
when it comes out.
that's
Imagine
gonna be
playing
the
that.
big. That's gonna be the big second title for the Switch Pro's launch.
Yeah.
We all know it is.
Yeah, so it's been a blast, guys. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm sure Brandon has as well.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to do more of these talks as we move into getting this channel a good internet presence. I appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, we're planning a lot of really cool stuff here. A lot of different discussions, reactions, all sorts of stuff. Maybe a few game reviews later down the line.
I would
That'd be really
love
fun.
to start some podcasts or live streams.
Podcasts would be a ton of fun. That'd be
Get-
really cool.
Get the whole club together. We can talk about Nintendo things. There's many more people that you will get introduced to over
Hopefully, yeah.
the next few months, hopefully. I'll hope they'll take part. We'll hope. But it's going to be a great journey, and I'm just looking forward to it, as
Yeah.
I'm sure Nathan is as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very exciting. But as I've said, kind of running out of time. So I'm sorry to break this off, you guys. But we pretty much said all we need to say for now, and we will be sure to upload new content soon. So Splatoon 3 really is appearing to set the stage for a Switch Pro or some sort of new Switch revision thing. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing where this goes. So we'll be sure to keep you guys posted. My name is Nathan, again.
Yep, I'm Brandon, and we'll see you in the next video.
Peace out.